morning, and welcome to the Somewhat Daily News Backup for Monday, the 29th of March. It is Somewhat Daily because for the next week only, we'll be coming at you every Monday and Wednesday. We're live on Twitch with all the news that we feel is relevant and important to talk about. My name is Gus Goose Mangus Ronald, and I am joined by Peter Pierreth Burns. How are you, Peter?
Very well, thank you. And I prefer Pete Mangus, if you don't mind.
Pete Mangus, go for it.
Pete Mangus from now on.
Feel free to take that. Really quick little history lesson. The 10-second version, Pierreth again was Pierre the something?
Yeah, Pierre the something. The character limit was reached at Pierre TH.
There you go.
And away I was.
And Pierreth it has been forever. And I've been Goose Mangus because I was Goose Man Gus. And everyone's like, what's up with Mangus? I'm like, Mangus it stays. So there we go. Our pseudonyms and their history. It is the Somewhat Daily News Backup. As I mentioned before, we will be doing a Monday, Wednesday show just for this week. And then we're going to rearrange things a little bit. But for today, we're going to stick to the usual format. We're going to go through some news and get you guys involved later on the show. But we couldn't do that, of course, without getting someone involved in the show. And that is, of course, Hero Pocketeer, !Tim. Get your Tims out in the chat from the Learn Programming Academy. He is the bringer of all learnings from coding and offers classes covering the entire range of programming. They're easy to watch, they're at all skill levels, and they're almost all $20 or less. So you can head to lpa.dev/backpocket and you can discover all his courses and realize the coder that you never knew you were, that you might want to be, and that you realize at the end of the day, it's what you always wanted to be. It's a weird roller coaster you go on, but it's worth the ride. That's what I can say about Tim. Peter?
Absolutely, yeah. And by the end of it, you'll be coding your own roller coasters.
There you go. Yeah.
I assume there's some code involved in a roller coaster.
Surely, like start here, stop here. Like it needs those elements at least.
Yeah. It's not just a big mechanical switch.
Yeah, and if you get that coding wrong and forget the bracket around stop, it just keeps going. It just keeps going faster and faster. All right, let's get into it because the news isn't going to break, read, or reveal itself, Peter.
Oh, I hope it doesn't reveal itself. Unprompted. Jeez.
Unprompted as well. Let's kick it off with a little bit of mobile news because Rocket League, the game you all know and love, is coming to mobile devices. Well, it's not the game you know anymore because it's going through some changes. Taylor Lyles from The Verge reports, if you've been looking to play Rocket League on the go but don't own a Switch, I forgot that, yeah, it's on Switch. Psyonic's massively popular vehicle soccer game is finally coming to mobile devices, with the developer announcing a new free-to-play version called Sideswipe that'll arrive on iOS and Android devices later this year. This looks to be largely the same as the main version of Rocket League, but it will be bringing a new perspective that accommodates mobile devices, and most importantly, will be bringing touch controls into the game. Peter, we played a bit of Rocket League back in the day. It was a original OG Pocket favorite. Do you think this could be a new favorite, or at least one that you might try?
Yeah, I'll definitely give it a shot. I don't play a lot of stuff on my phone, but
yeah,
this looks great. Like, I would love to see this version of Rocket League on PC.
Oh, yeah.
I remember playing like Slime Soccer and a bunch of little like 2D, like, you know, back and forth kind of games on browsers and stuff when I was younger. And this looks like just the most beautiful version of that kind of like back and forth physics seesaw kind of game that you could get. It's really cool. It's disappointing they didn't go with Pocket League because
then we could sue them.
It's right there.
It's right there.
Yeah, it's a cool evolution for Rocket League, which has, you know, been around for what, 5 years now?
Yeah, I guess so, including all the time it was like in early access, and it's hugely popular. I read this initially as a headline and thought, oh, they're going to try and port the full game across, which I was excited about. And then when I saw this version of it, I got that instant little sort of joy of seeing a compact version of a bigger game. Even though it's literally just a slightly shrunken arena, it just looks cute now. It's like a cute little Rocket League arena that I think will work really well. I think obviously the gameplay is going to be more focused on aerials. It's not going to, the whole game is pretty much going to take place with you floating around. So I imagine your boost would be unlimited or something, not unlimited, but something, a bit of a change up there to make it a little easier. But yeah, this looks really cool.
I imagine it'll be like a timer recharge as opposed to having to go and collect the recharges.
Yeah, exactly. So they've announced that according to the press release, players will compete in 2-minute 1v1s or 2v2 matches. So I think that's the limit. But yeah, it looks like from this trailer as well, they've also incorporated at least another mode like the basketball slam dunk mode.
Yeah, different
so
types, yeah.
And knowing the like commitment that these devs have to the game, they'll be sure to add plenty of other modes and silly hats for your car to wear.
Yeah, I think, like there's now the Epic own it.
Yeah,
it's we're sure to see some microtransactions in this that like the Pocket version of it, it's free everywhere now. Thanks to Epic, which is the way they're getting people in who didn't already buy it 3 times on 3 different platforms like I did.
I think I did the same, actually. Yeah, I've got it on Switch. I'm like, yay, it works on Switch. Never play it again.
Yeah, and PC and PlayStation. I think I got it on PlayStation 3 when it was like PlayStation Plus title.
It was an exclusive originally. Not exclusive, but it was just on PlayStation.
Exclusive. No, I don't think it was ever exclusive to PlayStation, but it definitely was played a lot there because it had I'm pretty sure it was always on PC. But the PlayStation version was part of the PlayStation Plus, which was a no-brainer to go there and get it for nothing.
Totally.
Yeah, like I think it's obviously there's a huge market for mobile gaming. We're not particularly that demographic, but it's a smart space for a game like this to be in, where it's a really easy format. I wonder how it'll play. I feel like it will play reasonably well with touch control. It's such a finesse game that it could be a little tricky to get your head around.
But people get so good at, just the original. So I imagine people will overcome all touch control obstacles to get good at this. I don't know if it does have gamepad support at this stage. That's not announced, but I hope it does, because I've, funnily enough, really gotten into using my DualShock Pro with my mobile, because I recently bought that little clasp that clips onto it. So I've been playing PS5 and now Xbox Series X remotely in bed using that. And I know Nick's a big fan of using his Backbone controller on it as well. So I'm like, if this was something I could throw in the mix as well and just have like thumbstick controls, I'd love to have this as a little like palate cleanser in between my Persona 5 sessions or something like that.
Would that be too much of an advantage to have a physical controller?
But I suck at this game, and I always have, so I need whatever advantage I can get at this stage, Peter.
We need to put Icy Mind Racer through the ringer.
Oh man, yeah, insane.
She was always like just incredible at the game. Like the day it came out, I don't know how she got so good, but
was already just like had those aerials and those. You watch the replays, and you're like, that's not fair. You can't be that good at this game.
Yeah, totally.
They have announced that there will be a limited alpha test available in Australia and New Zealand today, and more betas will...
Yeah,
Is that
I think
correct?
It's actually, that was a couple of days ago. It was whenever this
was okay, right. So that might be a little bit old. But so whether or not that's still accessible or available, I'm not entirely sure. But they have said that more betas will be available in the coming months, according to the developers. So yeah, this is still in the process of going through those betas. I wonder if it'll be one of those rolling ones where it's always kind of still in the marketplace, or whether they will sort of go for that hard release. Maybe in a couple of months or so, but I mean, it looks finished. What is that? I mean, I guess you're just testing balance at this stage, and you're testing
and netcode and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So
we have very few positives, like I guess advantages of being in Australia, gamers in Australia. But one of the cool things that we do get is that we're a really good test market for mobile platforms. So we get like Elder Scrolls Blades early. We get this stuff early to test the market, because we're a very similar market to America and a lot of Europe as well.
Yeah,
but we're a much smaller sample size,
like
so
low impact on. Yeah,
we're a good testing ground. So it's cool that we're kind of first cab out of the rank.
We're the guinea pigs.
Yeah.
No, I'm looking forward to this, and I'm keen to maybe just like see if I can. I hope it's more chaotic, therefore I can have more fun with it, because I did find I kind of like dropped off Rocket League based on that skill, the amount of skill that everyone had after playing it like day in, day out. So this could be a fun little casual one.
Yeah, for sure. And cool. Hopefully it's got a matchmaking system in it, because you're right. That this will not have as big a skill. I mean, it will absolutely have a massive skill gap, but I don't think it'll be as big as Rocket League, which in that 3D play space, like people just, they're gods as opposed to mere mortals like us who are like, oh, this will be fun to kick a ball around with a car.
There's people driving backwards doing backflips. You're like, okay, I get it.
I think
I'm
as
done.
long as there's a matchmaking system, it's like,
Totally.
it should be all right.
And I want to see more like cool games that I play regularly, just like slightly shrunk down and mobilized. I remember it happened a lot in the early days of mobile games. It's like, how can we make Assassin's Creed as a mobile game? It's like, no, you can't. But things like this is cool. I'd like to see more of this.
Yeah, totally.
Speaking of things we would like to see, there is an announcement recently that there will be a Ghosts of Tsushima movie. Sony Pictures and PlayStation Productions are developing a film adaptation of Ghost of Tsushima. I would say plural, I shouldn't. And it will be directed by Chad Stahelski, who you would obviously remember, Peter, as the director of all three
so far.
John Wick films, with a fourth in the works. This is reported from IGN by Matt Purslow. Sorry, got that wrong. According to a new report from Deadline, Stahelski will work alongside producers Alex Young and Jason Spitz with their company 8711 Entertainment, and they will be overseeing a production on behalf of the studio. Oh, sorry, I take that back. Peter Kang of the game developer Sucker Punch Productions will oversee the project on behalf of the studios and will serve as executive producer. So we're going to see some of the production company or the developer overseeing the film's creation. Is this a good thing, Peter? Is making this film in the first place a good idea? We both did not play this game, so whether or not we are the best people to have an opinion about this, or maybe we are the freshest set of eyes to say, is this how we want to start our Ghost of Tsushima adventure?
Yeah, I think that we have access to so many third-person action games. Like, there's so many that I haven't played just because I'm like, I don't need that kind of experience again.
Sure.
And Ghost of Tsushima did pretty well, obviously, and was pretty well received as well. But I think one of the things that people were a little down on was like, this story feels a bit generic, and it just like has that classic Ludo narrative dissonance that we talk about in games of like this guy's like all about being like becoming this like honorable warrior or throwing away some of his honor in order to achieve victory, because victory can't always be achieved with honor, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he's just like, while he's honorable, he just like goes around slitting throats everywhere. So
it's the Japanese Nathan Drake syndrome, where it's like, I'm the good guy. I've killed so many people.
I mean, I think it's just like it's a beautiful looking game, and I think that would translate well to film, and could be a visual piece of narrative that we don't often get in cinema as well, at least with a Western kind of perspective.
Yeah, totally.
So I'd be keen to actually watch this as a film, because I'm actually not particularly keen to pick up and play a 30-hour game set in the world.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. How about yourself?
Look, I'm a bit torn on this in the sense that, like, I think a lot of the comparisons were made when this game was announced and released, the fact that there is a game, like a camera mode in it, based on how heavily it was influenced by like Kurosawa films, that mode being a full black and white version of the game. And so you've got a game that is taking strong influence from those early Japanese films, those like cult action samurai films, and you're turning that into a game. So something we haven't done, or at least to this level of fidelity and world building, which is really wonderful. And now they're like, oh, we're going to make this a movie. And so I'm just like, it's sort of the snake eating its own tail thing, where it's like, well, there are amazing films set in this era, or, telling these kind of stories. And from everything you said at the start, I don't think the story in this game was really the draw card for a lot of people. It was the setting, it was the art style, it was the aesthetic of the whole thing. So I'm like tempted to say like there was no huge video game twist to this story. There wasn't like the whole time he is also embodied by the spirit of a dragon, which gives him a superpower or something. Like, there's nothing that then when you want to see the film version of it, you're like, they took that thing from this game. This is just quite literally a historical, or a sort of a semi-historical set in and around real events, but telling a fictional story in that setting. And I think there's probably other stories you could tell in and around that era of of Japan at that time. So, look, I think it might be one of those things that just uses the name recognition and tells a different... Well, I guess then again, they did say it will like be tied quite closely to the narrative. So, again, I think that's a really unnecessary thing. I do come from the school of thought where I love the idea of... I love the Super Mario Brothers film because they take this weird video game thing and they totally just use it as a jumping off point to tell a completely different story or world building. And so that's where I would like to see my video game movies in the future. I want to see, just drawing on them for inspiration and making little nods here and there. So I won't be rushing to see this, but I'm very curious to see how it's received. Obviously, the director himself is heavily influenced by like stunt coordination and choreographing. He is a stunt coordinator himself. That's why the John Wick series are heavily tied to so much intense action. So I'm assuming it's going to be John Wick in Japan kind of thing. Like, I don't think it's a stretch to say it's going to be very, very combat heavy.
Yeah, I think, you can't ignore that Stahelski sets out to make like choreographed action sequences.
And then writes a story afterwards.
Does he?
I mean, hang on. I knew we were going to bring this up.
Is there a story in John Wick?
I wasn't going to dive into this too much, but I think you and I had seen them all together. Like, I think you and I watched the first John Wick and were like, that was great. And I feel like someone definitely came along to that first script and, like, helped him out with it. And, like, helped fill out some of the other aspects of it to make it just a core revenge film with some very, very cool action. The second one was a little less interesting, and he could go a bit like carte blanche with the whole just like assassins killing each other. The third one we went and saw, and I was really bored because it was just, I remember it just being action scene after action scene with very little narrative. So I'm concerned that if it's just him going hammer and tongs for like, how many action scenes and how many cool kills can I put in this? And at the end of the day, he's on a journey to, redeem himself. And that's about it. I would be disappointed. But I know some people out there, more so now than ever, are just happy to go for escapism. And whether or not that escapism comes through just bold action and, stunt scenes, you can have films now that are 80% an action scene. And that's fine.
Well, yeah, like this game sets itself up as being really like, and again, I haven't played it, but from what I've seen of the cutscenes, it's quite considered and serious.
Yeah,
and I just can't see the action of a John Wick film melding with a serious story. And that's
agreed.
Not to say I think that's like that this can't work, but I think it could. I think the way that it works is that they tell just a balls to the wall, ridiculous story. Like, because again, we're working with a framework of something that's very like, cliched effectively, this story of like the redemption arc of the family kind of thing.
Sure.
I think if they just lean hard into the director, they'll have more luck than if they try. If this is Stahelski going like, you know what, I'm going to direct a serious film.
This will be my opus.
Yeah, exactly. And put a character in it for a change.
Are you saying you don't like the John Wick films? We had a good time.
No, I love them.
Do you not remember
I love
this?
Them.
Oh, okay, right.
But like, I also like when we saw 3, you were like, oh, I didn't like that one as much, and I was like, but it's the same as the other ones.
Yeah, but it was just fun the first time.
It's just the third time he's done the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're totally right about that. But like, that's what I'm signing up for every time I go to see one of those. So I'm happy to see it. And I'd be happy to see it in this setting as well.
Yeah, exactly. My quick little, I'm going to have a guess, or my prediction, film's plot. I'm going to say it's going to take it's going to use the same characters, same settings. Start of the film, was it there are foxes in the game? He's going to have a little pet fox, and the rival clan.
See where this is going?
He's going to come back to his hut, and someone's going to be like, they killed your fox. And he's going to be like, I keep thinking I'm back, or whatever. What's his line?
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
But in a Japanese accent, and I'm not going to do that on the stream.
God, please don't. Yep. And also, he's going to...
he's going to lift up his bamboo floor, and there's going to be all the old weapons. And he's going to be like...
yeah, there'll be a fancy hotel that you can only get into with, like... by praying to the right frog statue.
But it's like you're allowed to in there. It's like, is it barley? Like no one gets me. I don't remember John Wick. I just remember playground rules and all that kind of stuff. But look, yeah, I'm interested to see how this progresses, the casting, all that kind of stuff. But a lot still to come news-wise, because at this stage, I believe there's no date yet confirmed for shooting or release. So look, put this one in the back pocket, and we'll check back in with it in 3 years when it gets inevitably delayed or something like that. Something that has not yet been delayed but has been announced is that COD, or the new COD, is reportedly going back to World War II. This was reported by Eurogamer that the news has broken that this year's Call of Duty will return to World War II. According to fresh reports, in part verified by Eurogamer, these reports coming from a website called Modern Warzone, which confused me very much at the beginning, because I was like, wait, which game is Modern Warzone? But this website has reported that Call of Duty is in development at Sledgehammer Games, and they made 2017's really well-received Call of Duty World War II. I did not play that one. Did you?
Yeah, I must have. I don't remember it.
There you go. That's how people see COD these days. Like, it's in there. It's a big blur of other COD games, other World War II games, and it's due out late this year. And Eurogame has confirmed that this is true. Modern Warzone, the website, also reports this game is codenamed Call of Duty World War II Vanguard, which is one of the most wonderful, just like, oh, that's just a placeholder name. And the reports that the name will be changed in the future. And while this might be the case, Eurogamer understands that Activision's current plan is to stick with the name for the final version. So we've got two conflicting reports there that it's going to stay with Vanguard as the name. It may not. Another bit of confusing reporting was the fact that apparently the website reports that the entire game takes place in an alternate timeline where 1945 wasn't the end of World War II, and it's set in the 50s. So that was a report from Modern Warzone saying that they think it's going to be this this alternate future, alternate history, which we've seen a lot of in games. However, Eurogamer understands this detail isn't quite right, and Vanguard has a traditional World War II setting. So nothing confirmed there, just speculation at this point that the game will maybe take place in a alternate history, or it will just follow traditional history, how it really happened, to all traditional history.
The ways it happened.
Peter, do you want... I mean, no one wants to go back to World War II in real life, but as a video game, would you like to journey back to the not the trenches, to the front?
Yeah, I love them. I love the World War II games.
Really?
I prefer these to Modern Warfare.
Fair enough.
Nonsense.
It is nonsense, you're right.
Yeah. I mean, they're all nonsense, but I do prefer this. I can't really explain why. Sure. I guess, it's awful, the kind of glorification of all this.
Yeah. Also, how much we've experienced it, probably both of our and many, I'm sure, of our audience, just how many times we've relived moments of history, as video games. Moment, this exact landing. Moment, D-Day, finding bodies on the beach. This is still one of the worst historical things that could have been experienced of many, and it's been retold numerous times with different levels of graphic fidelity. I have an issue with that to a degree, but I will still. That
it's getting more graphic and war was arguably the most horrible thing ever, and we've made an entertainment industry around it. Yeah, in film and in games. I think film is a more effective way of showing the atrocities of war without glorifying them, because you inherently glorify them by being an action hero in them.
Yeah.
Or you go... I think the most effective way we've seen it play out is actually the Battlefield's take on World War I, where whenever you die, it just swaps to another soldier and is like, oh, this was just another private who... Oh, how did they die? Oh, you walked over a grenade.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that brings up a really good question I want to ask you is do you think, is COD the franchise that you want to experience this era of warfare? Is COD the franchise or the series that you think tells it the best or does it justice?
Tells it the best? No. Does it justice from a gameplay perspective? Yes, it's always fun.
Yeah, right.
They're always fun. Yeah. They're always really fun. And that's why they keep going back to it, I think, is they're just, it's a really effective time. They don't have to come up with these crazy future weapons and stuff. It's here's your arsenal. here's the battlefields that we know existed. Go have fun.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Because I totally agree with what you said about Battlefield. For me, does it justice in the sense that they find interesting ways to tell narrative around these historical events, but to do it with levels of enjoyment through the gameplay. But there's still a gut punch from here to there. Whereas COD's gut punch is quite literally just pointing a camera at things and saying, "Isn't this terrible?" But like, quick, now have fun, and then isn't this terrible? And it's like it again, that sort of. Ludo dissonant. I always pronounce it incorrectly, but like that thing you said earlier, it totally ends up feeling like that a lot of the time. Did you, and just while we're on this topic, because there's not much else to really report here, this is just at this stage an announcement of what's going to happen this year for COD.
A leaked announcement of what's going to happen, yeah.
There you go. And so did you ever play, because my favorite series, my favorite video game series set in any form of global conflict was Brothers in Arms, I think.
I didn't play Brothers in Arms, no.
So that was a really interesting game. That was a first-person military shooter that took place like past the front in France, and it was all based on real stories that had happened with real character names that were real people. And the game was actually all about like team coordination, flanking. It felt very, very realistic in the sense that it was not very bombastic, but there were these really like little corridors of combat you would have, and there were really great cutscenes in between with a series of characters that were drawn the whole way through. So for me, like I compare every World War II game to that series, and I'm really sad that doesn't exist. I think that series went a little off the rails as they started adding a few more fictional elements, and there were like some games or some sequels later on that didn't do as well as the original. But yeah, personally, I like where COD has evolved to. I like, in terms of its future warfare, I like that the Black Ops series tends to play with historical events, but skew them so they can have more adventurous and bombastic situations that won't be so close to home. I feel like I'm not trying to be on a high horse about the World War II reliving horrible events, because I'm a hypocrite. I've played so much of it. I've enjoyed a lot of it, playing it that way. But personally, I don't need to revisit it in a COD. So I'll see how it all goes. But this isn't.
It's interesting, the idea that if this Vanguard moniker kind of sticks around, like the assumption there is that it is a group way ahead of the front line. It could be similar to that Brothers in Arms story you're talking about. Of like, I imagine that it will be like they've been doing with their more recent CODs. Particularly what the Black Ops series does is that you've got this squad and you know your squad. Modern Warfare did it as well, obviously. This squad is what goes through X amount of battles. I think the reason they didn't do that maybe they did do it in the World War II, the recent World War II. Again, I can't remember playing it, but I'm sure I did.
I don't think I ever did, actually, yeah. So, but it just blurs with other ones. Maybe they did some more direct narrative or more character-based ones.
Yeah, so like obviously the gameplay, the benefit of having this massive, huge battlefront was that there's battles going on in all different parts of Europe.
Yeah.
And so by skipping between characters, you can skip around the world and see different areas and stuff. And maybe this Vanguard thing will be more like a Battlefield Bad Company story, or Brothers in Arms story of small group trying to get from A to B. You don't actually get that much variance in where they go. They're in France the whole time or something. But if it's historical fiction driven, then that could be at least a different spin on what COD tends to do with looking at World War II, which is like, look at these huge, cool battles, and this one had a tank, and this one had like an aeroplane and whatever.
And look at them all through the lens of like one nameless soldier. I know that sounds dramatic, or like that sounds respectful, but it's not. It's like one nameless, superhero who just charges through the front and, slaps Nazis and blows everything up and can recover by sitting behind a desk and like regen health. So it's like, I totally agree. I hope they go in a direction that tells a better story, and often that comes from adding more characters, a richer tapestry of having different, different characters to bounce off these horrible events, because that's where really the drama and then the perspective of what a weird and horrible time this was. Which then is peppered with interesting gameplay. It's a fine line to walk. I'm sure they will walk along it, and then it'll blow up, and it'll be like, it's just all over the top again. So
Activision are very concerned with making a fun game, not a game that's going to make you think too much about the reality of it all.
Yeah. In the meantime, we've got, is it 7 days in Fallujah to keep us happy about all our war crimes and whatever's going on there. Moving on. So yeah, we'll see what happens as more news drops about that. In news dropping, blood drops. Back for Blood? How's that for a segue? Turtle Rock, the studios who are developing Back for Blood, the spiritual successor in some ways to the Left 4 Dead series, has recently tweeted that their game is now going to be delayed. The news was dropped saying in a tweet from them that Turtle Rock Studios is working hard to make Back for Blood the best game it can possibly be at launch, and the team needs more time to do this. Therefore, we will release Back for Blood on October 12th, 2021. We thank our community for its continued support and are excited to share that there will be an open beta this summer. They also write above that in the tweet that they want to thank from the bottom of their hearts. Thank you from the bottom of their hearts for all the continued patience and support. This is a decision we were hoping we wouldn't have to make, but the COVID-19 pandemic had a huge impact. It definitely slowed things down for us. And then they followed up with, we know how excited everyone is about the title. We want to do it, and all of you and we want to do it, and all of you right by not rushing it out the door. Once again, thank you. We hope to see you in the open beta
this
summer.
Glad the sentence didn't end on, we want to do it, and all of you.
We want to do you. Okay. Have you ever wanted to do him so good?
Have you ever had a dream? Back for Blood?
We should have that as a button. Peter, you are looking forward to this game. It is on your Pocket League predictions for a good review and a bit of fun, and you played a lot of Left 4 Dead. This delay, it
was like the most terrifying headline to read, but it's still October, so there's a little more breathing room, even if they delay it again another month.
Sure.
I was concerned. I was definitely concerned, but they have had an alpha test, and we're seeing footage from that here, and it looks to be in pretty good shape. I'm sure part of the delay is trying to implement what they've learned from these tests, and hopefully we'll just make the game stronger, and don't push the game back any further. Not past December.
For those
2021.
Confused about what we're going on about, on our regular Thursday night show, we've set up a fantasy draft league of games that we've picked for the year, and at the end of the year, we will look at all their Metacritic scores and basically, like a fantasy football team, see who got the highest score. If the game gets pushed beyond the year, it's like an injury, and therefore you don't get that score, and that is what Peter is alluding to in the fact that one of his picks, one of his drafts, one of his star players was going to be Back for Blood. A game I rolled my eyes at when you mentioned. I am looking forward to this. However, I, in my usual way, have got hung up about something really petty, which is
in the footage that you've seen of it, or
in the initial cutscene. They did a cinematic trailer when they announced it, and the fact that Turtle Rock. Help me out here. There's developers who worked on Left 4 Dead series who moved.
Turtle Rock made the first Left 4 Dead.
They did make it officially? Yeah, right, okay. And then they went on to create Evolve. Yeah. And so now they're making this because obviously the Left 4 Dead series sits with Valve. And so they don't have any plans, obviously, at this stage to make a continuation of that series. So this is a very tongue-in-cheek and very similar-looking game. The thing that I loved about the Left 4 Dead series originally was their cinematics were really Valve on point. Like, they were really cool. They set up these characters. They were told really well. The opening cinematic for this that I saw as the trailer was just like, more zombies, bigger guns. Oh god, we're getting overwhelmed. And it didn't have any of the finesse of the like cool, interesting characters. It just felt like a bit of a poor man's. Look, I'm pulling this all out of my ass because it was just my initial gut reaction to it.
And it is a huge ass.
Thank you very much. The more gameplay I've seen of this, the more I am actually super excited to play another horde-based co-op shooter. And as I mentioned, we've played a little Left 4 Dead, or it's one of those games we always go back to. Do you think the landscape of gaming has evolved, that this genre is still fun?
I do. Like, it is still fun. I think the thing that makes the Left 4 Dead games fall off eventually is that you just get used to the maps, and so you move on. And I think what Left 4 Dead 2 did really well was the asymmetrical setup where you can play where it's 4v4, and the monsters try to hold the survivors back. And so I hope we see that in this as well, because that's the thing that gives it life beyond, oh, I've played through the maps quite a few times now, and like, do we really want to do that again? But I mean, it looks beautiful. It looks like it plays exactly like Left 4 Dead, which is almost disappointing, but also like they never look fun to play, but they look intense sometimes, but they look mechanically a bit gimme, I guess, like a little bit weird.
All the zombies are kind of just fallen over. The bullets don't really look like they're hitting in the originals. It's kind of like they're so much fun to play, but like just from watching the gameplay, it just looks really spammy and arcadey and a bit sort of a little silly. Whereas like, yeah, I think you're right. Like a graphical upgrade here, and hopefully maybe developing that multiplayer if it is asymmetrical, is something that this genre has needed, because we've been playing these older games. I can't remember when they came out, but like we've been very forgiving of the fact that they're run in that in Valve's original engine. They still run really well, but yeah, we're well overdue for an upgrade at this stage. So totally. I do like
I'm always
that.
Happy to go back to it, so it'll be nice to have a new thing to go back to.
Yeah, one thing I never gelled with in the Left 4 Dead series was how the Horde was kind of intimidating, but it also just they all fell over with one bullet. So it was like you just sort of fired into a crowd.
Playing on easy.
Fair enough. But one thing is, I wonder how this kind of game will stand up now against a game I'm currently playing, which I'm in love with, which is the COD Cold War Zombies Outbreak mode, which I don't think you've played this at all, but it's this wonderful spin on an semi-open world map, wave-based game where you move between different arenas. But the zombies in COD just have a little more, like, they take a little more to go down. You do need to get headshots. They just feel thwackier when you hit them. And, like, them being mobbed by them feels really overwhelming. And so after playing that, I'm concerned that a game like this, they might all feel a little like cardboard cutouts again. So I like that the footage we're seeing here is a few more 1v1s where, like, if one zombie can be intimidating, hopefully then 4 of them are like, and then 20 is like, shit, I'm running away kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
well, the difference is definitely the hero class zombies challenging and frightening. So
totally. Well, look, fingers crossed it's good. Fingers crossed it gets delayed even more and Pete doesn't get his draft pick this year. And but no, wishing the team at Turtle Rock all the best and hope. And I think really nice of them to add that, on the end of this delay announcement that there is a beta coming as well. I think that's like, I'm sure that was happening regardless, but nice to always kind of like have a bit of the good news with the bad news as well. So keeps people who are excited for the game.
Sugar.
There you go. Helps it go down. And finally, a last little news story that came in hot off the presses was reported from Game Sutra that recently during Xbox's Games ID showcase. So this is the indie showcase thing. Is that correct?
Yeah. ID at Xbox is what they call it.
ID at Xbox, which focuses on their indie games and a lot of the systems that Microsoft have set up to support indie developers and titles. Chris Chala, the senior director of ID at Xbox, said the program itself, so this is the ID at Xbox, which essentially, as I said, is their platform for launching indies, has paid out over $2 billion in royalties to independent game developers since its introduction in August 2013. So this ID at Xbox was established to bring more independently developed games to Xbox platforms, has done so, and so they've released over 2,000 games to date, independently developed, but supported by Microsoft and this program, and paid $2 billion. That's a serious chunk of change, and hopefully has created a lot of very fruitful and growing, hopefully they're no longer independent developers.
Maybe they want to stay independent.
Maybe they do. But
that cash.
It's a nice little story, Peter, that says that, these programs work, I guess. And have you experienced many, have you noticed the influx of indies through Microsoft?
It's definitely a big part of the Xbox ecosystem when you look in the store. I think that's where I always noticed it. It was like, oh, what's this little thing? Like I would often, Steam is a wonderful platform, but it's kind of messy to navigate.
Yeah.
And the Xbox has gone through phases of being good to navigate and very hard to navigate. But there were times that you would go into the shop and be like, oh, I've never heard of this thing ever. So there's always like, I think the big thing, the benefit for Microsoft is having more and more games. There's not a lot of AAA games that come out every year, so being, you can look at this system as being like very friendly to independent developers, but it's also very friendly to Microsoft. They're not going to do anything that doesn't benefit them.
Yeah.
And the benefit to them is that they build a network internally that helps them support these indie developers, and by supporting them, ensuring that they come to their platform and work out of the gate. And so there's always something to play on your Xbox. And I always noticed that there was something that I'd never heard of that I could play on my Xbox. And yeah, like, $2 billion over 8 or 9 years isn't like ludicrously high, but $2 billion across 2,000 games that have been supported by the system is pretty good. It's probably $2 billion went to like Super Meat Boy or something, and there's like $8 that went to the rest of them. But
they just pick their indie darlings and like, we'll cash you guys up, and everyone else.
Well, I mean, it's not on them to decide who's successful. It's on the audience to decide
who's buying them. Yeah,
who's
totally.
Buying it. So yeah.
But I mean, another positive out of it is the consistency of the program and the fact that it has been around this long, and it obviously is working for Microsoft, is working for the developers as well. So a positive sign in the gaming industry, and hopefully something that sticks around. Hopefully this is seen as something that Microsoft can double down on and, start to support more out there. And as I'm with you just on that mention of the fact that, there's a lot of like, it's difficult to navigate certain marketplaces, that there can be these little like indie gems that pop up, but also there's like, I do like that there's a level of quality control in the Microsoft store that you might miss on, like, say, Steam. And one I will push under the bus aggressively is the Nintendo Switch eStore. There is just, it's so weird, man. I remember originally, just off topic slightly, I was originally going to make a video for Good Game Online back in the day of like, here's the 5 worst Switch games out there, or here's 10 random Switch games. I'm just going to see what they're all about. They outdid me in how many shit games were finding themselves onto the store, that I'm like, this stops being a clever segment. There's too much shit there. So like, I'm curious about how those processes work, but I am at least encouraged that Microsoft Store, they have programs like this. They also seem to like, there is a quality control that makes sure that every game that comes through will work well on their system, will be fun, and will not be some kind of $3 rip-off game, from the last time I checked at least.
Yeah, no, they're all still there.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, that about does it and wraps up all the news we wanted to chat about today on the somewhat daily news backup. Anything else we need to add?
Steph asks, do you need milk, and do we have Worcestershire sauce? So I'll need to get back to her once we go.
That feels like a weird combination. I know they're not going to be used for the same meal, but it's just now I'm picturing something inventive in the kitchen. So good luck with that.
Thank you.
But if that's everything, thanks for watching, guys, and let's
back it up.